Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us. It's going to be hard to beat yesterday's program. We had a blast with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano and so many great questions, so many great comments, but we're going to try to do our best. We have a wonderful guest coming up in the 7 o'clock hour from AppleRidge, telling us about the upcoming health care fair. That'll be in the 7 o'clock hour. First, a couple of updates, and then, of course, we're going to talk about the anti-ICE shooting, what is being said. We have very few, updates on Jimmy Kimmel, just a couple of quick things. Charlie Kirk, of course. We've got a lot of New York State issues, so sit back and relax. We've got a full 2 hours of Frankly Speaking here. We start with an update from our friend Sarah on the ostrich farm scenario in Canada. I've been, just as of recently, following this quite closely because it's such a prime example of government overreach where they were going to cull the ostriches due to some avian flu, but of course these ostriches had herd immunity, but it did not stop the overreaching government from, like someone said yesterday on the program, very much like a peanut the squirrel scenario here locally. So that's why I think it is so important. So we appreciate Sarah's update. This is what she said. Wednesday, so yesterday's of course, ostrich farm update. They have a temporary stay of execution. The owners will have to go to the Supreme Court for an official decision. This is good news, except that CFIA will maintain control of the ostriches. The CFIA have not done well so far and blacked out the cameras on the farm. The bad news is that this all happened in the first place, that the government can come in and take over your land and torment you based on suspicion of illness. Other bad news is that the media is controlled by the Canadian government. So you may not get the full story. Great news, Canadians stood up together. Our politics didn't matter on this one. We can all agree that animal cruelty is deplorable. This case will set precedent in the Supreme Court, so it's important that we follow it because it seems like we really need to review the stamping out policy that would allow this cull of healthy animals. And that's it's so reminiscent of Peanut the Squirrel, and that was a great point from that viewer. And the reason I say that is because that wasn't, yes, it became a political rallying cry at specifically Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden right before the election. But it really was one of those issues that you didn't see Democrats and Republicans arguing over it. You saw it for what it was, wrong and a government overreach. And in that scenario, even one of the Supreme Court justices commented on it, though it was not an official decision from the Supreme Court, but made the reference to Peanut the Squirrel. So it is not... It's a very different and at the same time, very similar. Continuing, Sarah writes, thank you for paying attention. Yeah, well, it's something I think we should all pay attention to, even though it is Canada. It's important to see the impacts of government overreach. This is especially difficult for me, says Sarah, because I know how those birds feel. I was corralled by the police and the Canadian government in Ottawa in 2022 and tormented by them as they advanced on us because we spoke up against the mandates. They especially liked hitting and pushing women in tear gas. The protesters were peaceful. They used horses and trampled on a few people. I never, ever thought I'd experience that in Canada. We just wanted to be treated equally. That day changed my family's whole life. It was the day we decided to move to upstate New York. In a way, I'm grateful because our lives are better here. Cheers. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for giving us the update. It is interesting because it's one of those stories because Canada runs the media. It was difficult to find what I would call, I wouldn't say factual, but non-biased pieces. So I appreciate people that have been sending me what they know about it, because I do. I find it to be a fascinating kind of look in the microcosm of big government. Okay, a shocking new poll. Majority of Americans believe democracy isn't working, according to Quinnipiac. 53% of citizens believe American democracy is not working right now, compared to 41% of Americans who believe the system is going just fine. Those on the left, unsurprisingly, were much more likely to say the figurative house is burning down. 74% of Democrats that were polled say the system of democracy in the United States is not working. 74%. Now, only 22% of Republicans said it's not working. A few other eye-grabbing results from Quinnipiac. 79% of American voters believe the U.S. is in a state of political crisis. 79%. Wow. Your thoughts on this? 71% of Americans believe political violence is a very serious problem, up from 54% who felt that same way in June. A lot has changed, obviously, since June, and I think many, it does not surprise me, many people on both sides believe that political violence is a very serious problem. The problem is there are some, specifically on the left, that don't, according to polls, don't seem to be bothered by it or find the need to react to something like the assassination of Charlie Kirk with anger and vitriol, not because of the assassination, but at Charlie Kirk and his supporters. We've talked about it. We've got other examples of it. As a matter of fact, and not to keep you hooked, I do have an update on that teacher in Naples who said just despicable things about Charlie Kirk. And when he was called to task over it, he said, there's nothing you can do about it. I'm tenured. I'm untouchable, essentially. Very cocky in his response. Well, last we knew, he was on paid leave while it was being investigated. We're going to give you an update on where that story stands because I've had people asking me lately, where are the updates? Well, we finally got an important update on that a little bit later on. That will be in the same section where we read Karen's quote of the week. She sent that in earlier. I forgot to highlight that. I have that in my stack to read right before we start talking about Charlie Kirk and I think Jimmy Kimmel. 53% of voters said that they are pessimistic about free speech in the United States. So that's just kind of a quick poll from Quinnipiac. Your thoughts on that, with a majority of Americans believing democracy is not working. And 8 in 10 voters saying the United States is in a political crisis. All right. Now, according to this, the Quinnipiac University polling analyst Tim Malloy did say the Kirk assassination lays bare raw bipartisan concern about where the country is headed. So it is important to note there were people that came out in both sides, obviously, but on the left that did denounce what happened. But unfortunately, there were a lot of well-positioned people, big-name people that felt differently and celebrated what had happened or mocked what had happened. We hate to bring it up, but it is what the facts are. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later on, along with the anti-ICE shooting that occurred yesterday. Quickly, though, a couple updates, just because I don't want to somehow run out of time and not be able to mention these in a little bit more in depth. The Justice Department is considering seeking a criminal indictment against former FBI Director James Comey for allegedly making false statements to Congress. That's according to multiple outlets. The investigation into Comey is reportedly focused on whether he lied during congressional testimony he delivered on September 30th, 2020, related to the 2016 Trump-Russia collusion investigation. That's what Fox News is reporting. The statute of limitations on bringing perjury charges is 5 years. So federal prosecutors would have until next Tuesday to indict Comey. So they're on the fast train at this point. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia is handling the case. One source told Fox News there is a grand jury underway looking at the matter in Virginia. A decision could come any day. The extent of the charges Comey could face and the part of his testimony under scrutiny is unclear. President Trump announced last week that he fired the top prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Siebert, over the unusually strong support he had received from Democratic senators. Siebert, who claimed he resigned, had reportedly been under pressure from the Trump administration to bring charges against New York Attorney General Letitia James related to mortgage fraud allegations. Trump had nominated White House aide Lindsey Halligan to replace Siebert, who had yet to be confirmed by the Senate. Comey was fired by Trump in 2017 during the president's first term in the White House. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that, but it is being reported the grand jury is weighing charges, or indicting, I should say, James Comey for false statements as the statute of limitation looms. Talk about waiting till the last minute. September 30th would be the day for the statute of limitations to take effect. Also, when it came to, you recall, not that long ago, the John Bolton raid, Dennis Miller used to call him the nuclear walrus. Well, federal investigators seized multiple documents labeled secret, confidential, and classified, including some about weapons of mass destruction, during the late August search of the office of President Donald Trump's former National Security Advisor, John Bolton. That's according to a newly released court record that are part of an investigation into whether Bolton mishandled defense records. The new details provide additional insight into what evidence federal investigators have collected as they look at possible criminal charges for Bolton, who became a political antagonist of Trump after several interactions with him about foreign governments. I don't want to go through all this. We know that he became very much a kind of anti-Trump person when he lost his job. A lot of people said that there was, and in full disclosure, I interviewed John Bolton. He was very pleasant. There was a lot of people that felt that John Bolton, when he wasn't given kind of full power, he thought he knew better than Trump. He thought he had better plans than Trump. So it was one of those scenarios where when he was fired, he took it to the next level to criticize Trump at every turn, almost out of a kind of an anger or resentment, because again, he wanted to have the power, he wanted to have the say in all of it, and that was just not the case any longer. So that's when he kind of flipped. Well, the inventory list written by the FBI agents specifically said the property removed from Bolton's Washington, D.C. office on August 22nd included, quote, travel memo documents with pages labeled secret, U.S. mission to the United Nations confidential documents, U.S. government strategic communications plan confidential documents, and confidential documents with redacted heading weapons of mass destruction classified documents. Oof. Yeah, if you have a box laying around saying weapons of mass destruction classified documents, you probably are going to be in a little bit of trouble. Confidential and secret are both levels of classification for national security information. The federal agents also took 4 computers and a USB flash drive from Bolton's office, according to the records. According to a person familiar with Bolton's office, the paper documents Bolton had were not from the Trump administration. Instead, they had been 20 years or older under Secretary of State Department and the United Nations ambassador during the second Bush term. Okay. So there are your quick updates. Also, as an update from yesterday's program, as we run late, because when we come back, we're going to talk about the anti-ICE shooting and what is being said. We have a lot to get to. I want to make sure that we get to our New York State issues as well. Did you see Kathy Hochul, what happened at the Ryder Cup? Oh, she got booed. She got booed so much that even places that don't want to report on it had to report on it. We'll talk about that when we get to our New York State issues. But yesterday we talked about the sabotage of the escalator at the UN as President Trump and Melania were about to go up the escalator. It stopped abruptly, almost sending Melania tumbling. President Trump has called for arrests to be made related to the escalator incident, as it abruptly stopped working as soon as he and First Lady Melania stepped on it. Now, again, they were trying to claim that it had something to do with some sensor or something. A photographer started going down the wrong way and it triggered it to stop. I don't know. Seems a little bit, as was reported even by, I think it was the New York Times, or it may have been something, it may have been, I shouldn't have said that. It may not have been New York Times. But whoever reported on it said that there were staff joking that they were going to stop the escalator before it happened. So this coincidence that it happened to be some sensor seems a little bit of too big of a coincidence. This is what Trump said. A real disgrace took place at the United Nations yesterday. Not one, not two, but 3 very sinister events. First, the escalator going up to the main speaking floor came to a screeching halt. It stopped on a dime. It's amazing that Melania and I didn't fall forward onto the sharp edges of those steel steps, face first. It was only that we were each holding the handrail tightly, or it would have been a disaster. And that's what they were, if you want to accept the premise that it was workers there that had been joking about it, that's what they were hoping for. That optics that would go viral because people on the left would laugh and mock and ridicule it of him falling down. They would probably misuse it as a way to show that he wasn't healthy in some way. I mean, you could see it in your mind's eye already what would happen if that were the case, if he would have fallen. But the president continues. He argued the escalator incident was absolutely sabotage, pointing, oh, that's what it was. It wasn't New York Times. It was the Times of London. I knew it was somewhere else. The Times of London reported that UN staffers had been overheard joking that they might switch off the escalator and make Trump walk to the hall to give a speech. The people that did it should be arrested, the president fumed. Trump demanded an immediate investigation into the incident and said all security tapes at the escalator should be saved, especially the emergency stop button. The Secret Service is involved, he noted. We also saw that Trump's teleprompter stopped working while he was delivering a speech. The president claims his remarks couldn't be heard by anyone in the auditorium not wearing an earpiece. It was stone cold dark. I immediately thought to myself, wow, first the escalator vent and now bad teleprompter. What kind of place is this? He said the teleprompter kicked in about 15 minutes later. I've got to say, if that was sabotage, they made a mistake, because Trump off teleprompter, you're going to get a lot stronger reaction to, and I think you did, to some of those world quote unquote leaders. Then he said he learned of the audio issue at the end of the speech when he asked Melania, how did I do? And she said, I couldn't hear a word you said. This wasn't a coincidence. This was triple sabotage at the UN. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. So there's an update. When we come back, I know I'm running late. When we come back, we're going to talk about the anti-ICE shooting that occurred yesterday. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So glad that you joined us. Okay, let's get into the breaking story yesterday. The anti-ICE gunman who killed one migrant and wounded two others in Dallas is a former Boy Scout who was busted for marijuana and whose mother went on fiery rants against Republicans. This is basically the what we know at this point. So it's not any type of clear factor. I'm just telling you what we know about Joshua Johns. The words anti-ICE were scrawled on a stripper clip of ammo found near the body of Joshua John, 29, who died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Authorities discovered the marked ammo in a blue Toyota Corolla, believed to be John's, with a tattered printed out map affixed to the right rear quarter panel, with text above it reading radioactive fallout from nuclear... Wait, what? Radioactive fallout for nuclear detonations have passed over these areas more than 2 times since 1951. Okay, I'm sorry. It got a little cut off there, and I thought I was misreading it. The image appears to be a map created by researcher Richard Miller, which shows areas of the U.S. over which 2 or more radioactive clouds have crossed, resulting from nuclear testing in Nevada in the 50s and 60s. He was firing from a rooftop at a bus full of migrants being escorted by federal agents into the immigration facility. The gunman is a registered independent who voted in the Democrat primary in 2020 and last cast a ballot in 2024. He had experience with firearms, according to his family, and a 2015 bust for marijuana possession. John's brother, Noah, branded his unhinged sibling as unique, saying he didn't care about politics but knew how to handle a gun, even if he was a, quote, lousy shot. He's not a marksman, that's for sure. He would not be able to make any shots like that. The gun used appeared to be an antique bolt-action 8mm high-powered rifle, not unlike the weapon used to kill Charlie Kirk in Utah earlier this month, excuse me. Oh, okay. While the killer's political motives remain under investigation, his mother Sharon posted a series of anti-gun rants on Facebook, blasting Texas Republican lawmakers who supported the Second Amendment. In a resurfaced Facebook post from May of 2022, the irate mother ripped Greg Abbott and Ted Cruz and John Cornyn, accusing them of chasing power and money while children and adults died in school shootings. I'm not going to read her exact post. I don't think there's any reason to. It is believed that John was last employed in the renewable energy industry and has ties to Oklahoma. An employee at Image Solar, a training center for people looking to become professionals in the industry, confirmed that John had completed a brief course at the Austin-based institution a few years ago. He also briefly worked at Solar Time USA in Richardson, Texas, about a decade ago. Wednesday's vicious shooting, which also left 2 detainees critically injured, is being investigated as a targeted attack. Going to what, and we mentioned his mother. with those social posts. They're saying that he fired indiscriminately. I don't want to go into too much of what CNN said here, but they had a what we know as well. But they said the victims, the 3 people shot while detained at the Dallas field office, were in the country illegally. ICE Deputy Director Madison Sheehan said they had been arrested and were awaiting transfer to a longer-term facility. DHS says the 3 detainees were shot while in a van in the Sallyport, a fortified exit commonly found in prisons and on military bases. Authorities have not named the victims. One of the injured detainees is a Mexican national, according to a statement from Mexico's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. While DHS called the shooting an attack on ICE law enforcement, none of the people shot were members of law enforcement. There is not a lot known about the motive except for the, quote, anti-ICE written on the bullets. I mean, that is in and of itself a motivation. I'm just saying not a lot is known at this point about the man. We know that there were bullet holes all over the building. It wasn't just targeted at one specific area or through a window, Noam said. The alleged shooter was very much focused on hitting anyone that he could inside and making sure that there were victims of this attack. It was an act of targeted violence. Now, the FBI released a statement, Kash Patel, saying, while the investigation is ongoing, initial review of the evidence shows an ideological motive behind the attack. One of the unspent shell casings recovered was engaged with the phrase anti-ICE. More updates will be forthcoming. These despicable, politically motivated attacks against law enforcement are not one-off. We are only miles from Prairieland, Texas, where just 2 months ago, an individual ambushed a separate ICE facility targeting their officers. It has to end, and the FBI and our partners will lead the investigations to see to it that those who target our law enforcement are pursued and brought to the fullest extent of justice. Thankfully, no law enforcement personnel were injured. Please pray for those injured and deceased. Trump blamed radical left Democrats. We'll tell you what he had to say. J.D. Vance as well. Wow. Fiery J.D. Vance. He pulled no punches. We've got a few other things on this. Feel free to weigh in. Then we have an update, as I said, on some of the people that said such vicious things about Charlie Kirk and his family. We'll tell you about those. A lot of New York State updates in the 7 o'clock hour. We're going to hear from AppleRidge. All that and much more. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this. Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So President Trump blasted the attack on the Dallas ICE facility, saying that the, quote, deranged radical leftists were to blame. This is what he tweeted out or truthed out. I've been briefed on the deadly shooting at the ICE field office in Dallas, Texas. It has now been revealed the deranged shooter wrote anti-ICE on his shell casing. This is despicable. The brave men and women of ICE are just trying to do their jobs and remove the worst of the worst criminals out of our country. But they are facing an unprecedented increase in threats, violence, and attacks by deranged radical leftists. This violence is the result of the radical left Democrats constantly demonizing law enforcement, calling for ICE to be demolished, and comparing ICE officers to Nazis. The continued violence from radical left terrorists in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination must be stopped. ICE officers and other brave members of law enforcement are under grave threat. We have already declared Antifa a terrorist organization, and I'll be signing an executive order this week to dismantle these domestic terrorism networks. I'm calling on all Democrats to stop this rhetoric against ICE and America's law enforcement right now. The Trump administration is fully committed to backing law enforcement, stronger borders, securing our homeland, deporting violent illegal criminals, and fully rooting out the left-wing domestic terrorism that is terrorizing our country. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Uh-oh. When he says that, he means business. Now, J.D. Vance, wow. He lashed out at Gavin Newsom, calling the governor of California, accusing him, I should say, of encouraging crazy people to attack law enforcement. Vance's fiery rebuke also followed Newsom appearing on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, where, and we know Newsom is wanting to run very badly for president in 2028. He argued the Trump administration, this is what Newsom said on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, the Trump administration is an authoritarian government. J.D. Vance saying the very people who keep us safe ought to be honored and protected and praised by Democrats and Republicans alike. It's time to stop the rhetorical assaults on law enforcement, because here's what happens when Democrats, like California Governor Gavin Newsom, say that these people are part of an authoritarian government. When the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go out and commit crime. You don't have to agree with my immigration policies. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump's immigration policies. But if your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to, and you have no place in the political conversation of the United States of America. Yeah, he said the full thing. Well, and we could hear too. FCC wouldn't blame us for that, but I'm not going to, because I know a lot of young kids watch us to get their pre-education before they go to school. So we'll keep it clean. Newsom responded to Vance's remarks in a social media post, writing, "No thanks, JD. I will not be going straight to today. Though when I watch you speak, I certainly feel like I'm already there." Oh boy, he is trying so hard. Do you think that is a winning response to what J.D. Vance had to say? Gavin Newsom is very much, he's trying. He got a little bit of a boost there when he was emulating Trump in his tweets. I think most people remember his failed response to the California wildfires and his disastrous failed response, as well as his failure with the riots. And the media try to hype him up so much because of these tweets. I think he's getting to kind of the Cuomo syndrome, where you have so many in the media that like you start to think really full of yourself. So now he's just trying even harder, chasing that high that Cuomo did, for instance, during the COVID pressers. But Gavin Newsom believes, there's no doubt, that he is going to be the nominee for president in 2028. Newsom argued that Americans are losing confidence and trust in law enforcement as a result of Trump's surge in immigration enforcement operations during his appearance on Colbert. Newsom alleged the federal immigration agents had recently pulled out guns and handcuffs on a disabled teenager in Los Angeles before raging about masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process, no oversight, zero accountability happening in the United States of America today. People ask, well, is authoritarianism you being hyperbolic? Baloney. We're being hyperbolic. If you're a black or brown community, it's here in this country. These are not just authoritarian tendencies. These are authoritarian actions by an authoritarian government. That's what he said on Stephen Colbert. Now, Stephen Colbert is a very appropriate place for him to be, because that's what Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel do. They have a crowd where people love to tune in to have their worldview confirmed. It doesn't have to be funny, as clearly we saw with Gavin Newsom's appearance. It just has to occasionally make a reference to how bad Trump is, maybe call him orange or talk about his hair, make some type of off-colored, many times cuss-filled joke, and the SEALs in the audience clap and love it, and they go about their business and call it a night. It's why unfortunately the late night format has been essentially destroyed, and we may talk a little bit about that with Jimmy Kimmel, but it's the days of Johnny Carson long gone. Kristi Noem said that the shooter was driven by hatred for ICE. For months, we've been warning politicians and the media to tone down their rhetoric about ICE law enforcement before someone was killed. This shooting must serve as a wake-up call for the far left that their rhetoric about ICE has consequences. Comparing ICE day in and day out to the Nazi Gestapo, the secret police, and slave patrols has consequences. The men and women of ICE are fathers and mothers, sons and daughters. They get up every morning to try and make our community safer. Like everyone else, we just want to go home to our families at night. The violence and dehumanization of these men and women who are simply enforcing the law must stop. We are praying for the victims and their families. She also said, people don't go around etching things into shell casings and then firing them into buildings for fun. Nobody does that for fun. Everybody needs to remember, these officers live in these communities too. They live there. Their families are there. They want to make sure their kids can go to school and that their families can go grocery shopping and go to their jobs and be safe. But, well, When we come back, we'll show how there has been no lesson learned. We also have a couple updates on Charlie Kirk on the rhetoric that has been used against Charlie Kirk's family and Charlie Kirk's legacy, and some things that are being done to honor Charlie Kirk. Also, a lot about New York State. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. A beautiful view of historic Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. So again, showing that the rhetoric is unfortunately not going to calm down as best as we can see. On Wednesday's broadcast of MSNBC's Katie Tur Reports, MSNBC security and intelligence analyst Christopher O'Leary discussed the shooting at the ICE facility and said that while people should tone down their rhetoric, quote, you also have to start looking at what policies you've implemented and what tactics you're using, because if you tone down the rhetoric, but you leave those other pieces in place, nothing's going to change. So again, blaming, I suppose you could say, the victim here. O'Leary said, so terrorism is theater. It's intended to influence an audience beyond its immediate victims. It's putting a message out. And terrorism falls into really three categories. It's either religiously motivated, ideologically motivated, or in this case, politically motivated. And the politically motivated ones, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because conditions have been set that people start acting out against. He added that the conditions are distrust in institutions that's been building for quite some time, attacks on institutions, the wealth gap, oppressive policies, at least this is what people perceive, and then the militarization of ICE and other federal law enforcement, the wearing of the masks, the aggressive tactics. So the people who are starting to act out against this feel it's their only recourse. Again, this is predictable. We see this happening throughout our history and in other places as well. So we can tone down the rhetoric, and that's the right message. But you also have to start looking at what policies you've implemented and what tactics you're using. Because if you tone down the rhetoric, but you leave those other pieces in place, nothing is going to change. Now, the New York Post editorial board said it had a stronger message on this, saying that Gavin Newsom, AOC, LaMonica McIver, Brad Lander, and all the other politicians and talking heads who relentlessly villainize ICE didn't tell Joshua John to go up on that roof and start firing away. But the nonstop, bigoted, hateful, and false rhetoric surely played a role in what looks to be the horrific decision of a troubled young man. Just the night before, Gavin Newsom vented to Stephen Colbert's viewers about authoritarian action by an authoritarian government, thundering that the ICE issue is alarming beyond words. Anti-ICE was scrawled on the ammo clip found by John's body. He killed himself after firing dozens of rounds wildly into an ICE facility in a residential Dallas neighborhood. His only victim turned out to be 3 detainees hit, at least one fatally, when he shot up a blacked-out van, but several agents were in the same vehicle. Despite what lefty doubters may want you to believe, he was plainly trying to slaughter ICE personnel. Why else spray the building's lobby and windows? Because the media initially tried, and still continues to try, to suggest that it wasn't, that he was maybe not aiming for ICE, but was aiming for the deportees. Public figures who keep saying Nazi about some group are in fact encouraging targeted violence. All of us want to believe we would have fought to prevent Hitler's rise. And that's the idea. We've heard that before, that if you keep calling somebody Hitler, keep calling someone Nazis, what do you do to Hitler? What do you do to Nazis? You stop them, is what they're saying in a different word. So public figures who keep saying Nazi about some identifiable group are in fact encouraging targeted violence, because all of us want to believe we had fought to prevent Hitler's rise. But the demonization is wildly off base. Unlike some Border Patrol operations, ICE agents right now are exclusively engaged in intelligence-based, data-driven enforcement targeting known, identifiable bad guys. That means going after the 1.5 million individuals who haven't left the country months after receiving a final order of deportation, meaning they've exhausted all appeals, as well as the roughly 700,000 illegal immigrants who've committed or at least been charged with a felony in this country or in many cases back home. Plus, working with other agencies, hitting TDA hideouts, a gang, Tren Diaruga. Businesses with records not just of illegal hiring, but also other crimes, including child labor and so on. By the way, sanctuary restrictions on local law enforcement cooperating with ICE only increases the dangers of ICE operations and boosts the odds that innocent illegal migrants will get arrested. In jurisdictions that honor ICE requests to detain perps, agents rarely have to pursue anyone in the community. It's an easy, peaceful handoff. But risks rise when they have to knock on or knock down doors, and they're far more likely to encounter others here illegally in such incidents, leading to more collateral arrests. None of these facts penetrate the left-wing media and political echo chambers, where everyone's busy repeating and amplifying whatever assertion confirms their biases. And so on Wednesdays, details of the Dallas attack slowly surfaced. Progressives kept falsely fact-checking Vice President J.D. Vance and anyone else who treated a gunman firing wildly into an ICE facility as motivated by anti-ICE sentiment. All this barely a week after the left had fallen for the fiction that Charlie Kirk's killer was a far-right MAGA member. Rather than try to explain away the truth, why don't Democrats try taking some of their own advice? They railed endlessly that reckless rhetoric was fueling violence, but won't take responsibility for their own radicals. Why don't they stop using dishonest terms like Nazi, fascist, and slave patrol and denounce those who do to prevent the next person who would kill in their name? Amanda Makis from Fox said, from rhetoric to bloodshed, Texas ICE attacks caps escalating left-wing terror wave. I know I said that strange. The shooting of 3 ICE agents marks the latest and most brazen example of a surge in left-wing political violence. From the dual attempted assassinations of President Trump to the murder of Charlie Kirk, I would say the assassination of Charlie Kirk, a chilling pattern is unmistakable. The left's relentless demonization of conservatives is fueling real-world bloodshed. And she goes through some quotes here, and I don't want to go through each of those. But outside government analysts agree the threat is serious and more recently tied to the left's rhetoric. There's a serious political problem in the United States, said Charles Fane Lehman, a fellow at the Manhattan Institute. He stressed that all political violence is bad, but noted the most recent string of incidents has been left-coded, pointing to attacks on Teslas, ICE agents, and a string of politically motivated shootings and bombings. Lehman said the murder of Charlie Kirk was the culmination of that trend, carried out by a suspect who had previously called the 31-year-old political activist a fascist, borrowing the same language often used by prominent Democrats to describe conservatives. At a certain point, if you make these arguments about people, somebody somewhere will take you seriously enough to use force because you are making an argument that seems to justify the use of force. The dynamic he described has already played out in stark terms, most dramatically in the 2 recent assassination attempts on Trump. Continuing here, beyond the rhetoric, they emphasize that lax immigration enforcement carries its own dangers, from terrorism to fentanyl. We really need our political leaders, media figures, and citizens to model a return to principled disagreement where policy differences are debated without resorting to apocalyptic hyperbole. There we go. All right. We got to take another short break. A little bit later on, we are going to hear from Karen. Karen sent us in a quote of the week, of course. And it ties in with an update. I'm going to start the program, or start the second hour of the program with an update on that teacher in Naples. Yes, because we only have 15 minutes. And there's a couple other things I want to maybe cover before we talk about Charlie Kirk. Let's go next to Jimmy Kimmel, because after Charlie Kirk, I want to talk about some New York State issues that I think are really important. That we're going to want to mention. A couple other updates. I might go to updates too when we come back. But you're more than welcome to weigh in on the anti-ICE shooting if you'd like. But when we come back, some updates. We've got so much to cover this morning. I'm overwhelmed. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam. Brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Ken writes in this morning, Frank, did you hear one of the Fox News hosts, I don't remember which one, challenged Newsom to accept a $1 million bet that there will be an election in 2028, contrary to Newsom's prediction that Trump is well on his way to take over the country with his personal police force, ICE. A couple things about that. I did hear about this, Ken. I'm glad you mentioned it. It was actually $10 million. $10 million, a bet with Gavin Newsom that the election will happen in 2028. The host was Clay Travis from Outkick. He said he would put up $10 million of his own money against Gavin Newsom that there will be an election in 2028. And this is in reference to Gavin Newsom again and his appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Newsom said he's raising awareness around how Donald Trump is trying to rig the midterm elections. And I fear that we will not have an election in 2028, he said. This is the kind of rhetoric that drives people to unhinged things. I really mean that in the core of my soul, he said. Unless we wake up to the code red, what's happening in this country, we wake up soberly to how serious this moment is. I think it's important to have those civil engagements. I think it's important to dialogue. It's important to learn from your opponents, and it's important to reconcile your weaknesses. So that last part was in reference to Charlie Kirk. The governor continued stressing the need for Democrats to reset after their 2024 defeat. As a Democratic Party, we have a lot of work to do to make up for our failures in the past. We got crushed in the last election, and now we are in a position where we are struggling to communicate. We're struggling to win back now the majority in the House of Representatives. He said a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of folks that honestly don't know if we're going to get our country back, and I get it. This guy is flooding the zone. He's dominating the narratives. Facts don't seem to matter, and Democrats, frankly, have had a difficult time pushing back. And I think what people appreciate is that we're willing to fight, and not only fight symbolically by having a little bit of fun, but fight substantively. We have 41 lawsuits against the son of a gun, but he didn't say gun. We're pushing back, and we're winning. So there is the rhetoric of Gavin Newsom. But yes, a $10 million bet offered by Clay Travis that there will be an election in 2028. Did you see? Oh, man, I might push this one off here. Yeah, I'm going to push this one off and see if I can show you a picture of it. But there is a kind of a cool update I want to get to. But before that, this has gone viral. This is in reference to a story that we brought to you yesterday. Past accounts on Twitter at the time, I believe, and now X, associated with the Tylenol brand, they're going viral, especially one that states, quote, "We don't recommend using any of our products while pregnant." So social media users dug up the old post from the Tylenol account, which has not posted since 2021. In one post from March of 2017, the account posted, quote, "We actually don't recommend using any of our products while pregnant. Thank you for taking the time to voice your concerns today." Another post circulating comes from June of 2019. The brand appears to be congratulating a woman on her pregnancy. In the post, the brand indicates that they had not actually tested the drug for use during pregnancy. I had someone walking by, if you're wondering what that was about. I was on someone's phone. They were filming me. All right, the post reads, "Congratulations on your upcoming edition. So exciting. It'll be great to touch base real quick, since we haven't tested Tylenol to be used during pregnancy, and see what coupons we have for the baby." So the list goes on and on. Just worth mentioning. Now, when we come back, we've got a couple other updates. We're going to wrap up hour number one. Get your comments, your questions, your waves in. It's hard to believe hour number one is almost already in the books, isn't it? Oh, one quick thing I wanted to mention. A couple quick things. Well, I have just 1 second. There is a fundraiser coming up on Saturday, and it's a benefit for Rick Moses. You may know him as Mo, the man behind the Motown concert venue in Addison. There's going to be a big benefit. Without going into too much detail, Mo has had very, very serious health issues, and I don't know. I'm not firsthand, so I don't want to get into the exact depth, but it is bad, is what I'm being told. So they're holding a benefit for him and for all that he's done for local music. It's being held this Saturday at Motown Concert Venue. That's 7222 State Route 417 in Addison. It starts at 1, runs till 9 p.m., and all proceeds go directly to Rick and his family. There'll be live music, dance, food, 50-50. Chinese auction, vendors, free camping. If you want to attend, it's just $10 for entry. Kids 15 and under are absolutely free. Live music from Planet Junior, Brian Kane and Company, Jerk, band I guess called Jerk, Chad Taggart Band, Kira and the Kindness, and Whiskey and Lace. So again, that's this Saturday at Motown Concert Venue. Benefit for Rick Moses. All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security. In Horses. Why is that doing that? Huh. Sorry, I was working behind the scenes so I could show you a picture, and that might have been the reason why that was the case. But we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Okay. Before we wrap up this hour, and I see that we had a couple of quotes, but I was working, or a couple of comments, but I was working behind the scenes here. So I'll get to that in the top of the next hour. So thank you for keep sending the comments in. We're going to start off our broadcast, our second hour broadcast, with a quote from Karen. And then we'll talk a little bit about, well, a bunch of different issues. Just trust me. You're not going to want to miss it. The top of the next hour. And in the next hour, we're going to have AppleRidge in to tell us about their health fair. Okay, here we go. I don't know why this is so difficult for me. Trump unveiled the Presidential Walk of Fame at the White House. You may have seen this by now. So the Presidential Walk of Fame, and it is framed photos of the presidents featuring photos of the 45 men who have led the United States. If you haven't heard this by now, you get ready for a good laugh, but you may have. Here's where Trump gets involved. Let's try it. Yes, in between the two Trump presidencies, you will see the president, Joe Biden's picture is that of an auto pen. The Presidential Walk of Fame has arrived on the West Wing. Wait for it, said Trump's special assistant Margot Martin, with a panned video of the gold-framed portraits, beginning with George Washington, nearest to the White House residence, before reaching pictures of Trump in the auto pen. Trump personally inspected the latest executive mansion renovation in a photo tweeted by the office White House account. So whatever you think, that is what is the case at the White House right now. Trump's plan to portray Biden as an auto pen was known for weeks, and the iconic passage White Wall was recently resurfaced in preparation. So there you are. Those are there's no other real photo there. I think there's just a photo of, oh, there you go. Just a photo. Thank you, the New York Post, by the way, for that use of that photo. But I thought that was very, very funny. I'm sure a lot of people got a kick out of that. So the president reveals Presidential Walk of Fame with a brutal Biden snub as the auto pen. All right, when we come back, we're going to hear from Karen's Quote of the Week. We've got an update. This is a very important update on that teacher in Naples and what happened after that viral, disgusting post on Charlie Kirk, and then doubling down and saying worse things or as bad things and saying you can't do anything. I'm tenured. I'm essentially untouchable. We're going to get an update on that. And just a couple quick rundowns. Looking at the polls on Jimmy Kimmel, I don't think it's worth spending. Yes, I know he got very good ratings. That is predictable when you have a controversy like that. But do you know that 75%, according to a poll by economist YouGov, 75% never watch Jimmy Kimmel live or do so less than once a month? So again, I don't think it's worth really commenting much more on, but there's a couple of quick things that I do want to mention. 58% of adults never watch Jimmy Kimmel, while another 17% tune in less than once a month, according to the poll. But that does it for hour number one. Hour number two coming up in just a moment. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome to hour number two of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to hear from AppleRidge. They've got an upcoming health fair. It's coming up actually this Friday, the Community Health Fair. Everybody is invited. It's open to the public and it's free. You're going to learn about that coming up in just a little bit. Don't forget, tomorrow on the program, we'll be visited by our friends from San Giovanni Valderno. I know we had one group on Tuesday, but now we have the second group from a different school, but both from San Giovanni Valderno, Italy. The second group will be joining us on tomorrow's broadcast. So you don't want to miss that. And after that, we'll be talking with the mayoral candidate of Corning, Pam Walker. All right. We're kicking off hour number 2 with a couple of comments. First up, a viewer writes in, deep state liberals, aided by the liberal media, are trying to smear Tom Homan. Yeah, they sure are. For one reason only. He's doing a good job securing our border and deporting illegals. They've tried the same playbook countless times against Trump. Didn't work then, won't work now. I agree. And Tom Homan is very similar because he's no nonsense. He doesn't beat around the bush, and they hate that. So, yes, you knew there was a laser-like focus that they were going to go after Tom Homan because they dislike his style as well as his success rate. So I agree. Now we go to Karen. Karen sends in her quote of the week. She said, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Karen. It's time for Karen's quote of the week. The quote is short, but let me lead in with this. There is much talk about tolerance these days. In order to require tolerance, one first must think something is wrong. We should, we are told, accept all sorts of things we may find we disagree with, lest we be labeled intolerant. Criminals must be given endless chances without punishment. Delusional people affirmed. Drug dealers warned as they import death to our country. Even murder is tolerated if we don't like the victims. Which brings me today to Karen's quote of the week. The Nobel Prize author Thomas Mann said, and I quote, tolerance becomes a crime when it is applied to evil. Again, Thomas Mann saying tolerance becomes a crime when it is applied to evil. Thank you, Karen. That's a great one. As always, another great quote of the week. How appropriate in these times. So as an update, many have been asking what is new in regards to the Naples teacher that posted online using profanity, saying despicable things. I didn't even print out what he had said, but I know with the second follow-up, kind of doubling down on his tweets, he said something to the extent of, well, I'm tenured. There's nothing you can do. They know that I speak this horribly, but there's nothing that they can do. Well, the Naples, this coming out of WROC, the Naples Central School District says the staff member placed on leave after making controversial social media posts about the shooting of Charlie Kirk has now resigned. Superintendent Kevin Swartz released a letter to the school community this week confirming the resignation and saying the district considers the matter resolved. So his hand was forced for a very confident, I would say cocky individual who thought he was untouchable to go out in this fashion, resigning because of the horrible things that he said. The superintendent said, this has been a difficult time for NCSD, and I hope we can now return our focus to all that is positive within our district. NCSD stands with the community in upholding the values of kindness, empathy, compassion, and civility. Thank you for your understanding and ongoing support of our students and school districts. Now, this, I think he was a physics teacher. You know that what he was saying, because it was so viral, was something he would say in class. And he was pretty confident in that, in his attitude. The investigation into the posts led to protests, or not the investigation, excuse me. There was an investigation of the post, but the posts led to protests. The post, which circulated online, used profanity against Trump supporters and Kirk's fans, referring to Kirk as a Nazi, and showed a T-shirt that read, "Is he dead yet?" Kirk was shot and killed while speaking at a Utah university. The district acknowledged widespread community reaction in its initial statement, and local leaders also weighed in. Naples Mayor Brian Schneck said, on one hand, I always believe people have the right to free speech. On the other hand, it is always a good idea to verbalize a thought. Is it always a good idea to verbalize the thoughts you have? Because people have that right. It affords us by the First Amendment, right? The mayor noted he had interacted with a teacher over the years, calling him very verbal in his expressions. So the issue isn't, listen, he had a free speech right. He used that free speech right. Absolutely did. He doesn't have a right to a job that's paid for by taxpayers, for saying these type of things and trying to, well, he didn't just, he called out Kirk's family, Kirk's supporters, and he said vile things. Superintendent Schwartz emphasized the resilience of students and staff as the district moves forward. He pointed to a strong start to the school year and all of that. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so the Naples teacher has resigned following the controversy over Charlie Kirk's shooting post. I know many people have been looking for an update on that, and I'm glad that I could bring that to you, because it's when you start to hear investigation and you start to hear things like he's on paid leave, you start to wonder if anything will come from it. Honestly, you start to wonder if we're just being brushed aside. I'm trying to see if I can find some of the quote, but I don't know why I'm trying to find that. It really doesn't, it's not necessary. But again, resigning, I don't think, as far as I know, there has been no apology or anything like that, just a resignation. All right. 2 Arkansas sisters are now begging for money after they were caught on camera trashing a Charlie Kirk memorial and it ended up costing them their jobs. Yes, a memorial. Imagine that. Carrie, who's 23, and Kaylee Rollo, who's 22, set up a GoFundMe seeking $18,000 to cover legal fees after they were arrested days earlier for allegedly vandalizing a Kirk memorial of candles and signs on the Benton County Courthouse steps for the assassinated Turning Point USA founder. I keep a weird cadence this morning. So basically they stomped on flowers, on candles at the Benton County Courthouse. Quote, "My sibling and I are being doxxed online, and my sibling was fired from their job," said Kaylee, adding that their First Amendment rights were being violated, which is not the case. People misuse that so much, don't they? It gets rather frustrating. So this is what they said on their, and they're going to reach, don't think for a moment they're not going to reach that goal, because you're going to have people that hate Charlie Kirk, probably, unfortunately, if you've been on social media, probably people you know that have hated Charlie Kirk that will see this and easily give $10, $15, $20. After the recent events, Charlie Kirk's death, my sibling and I are being doxxed online, and my sibling was fired from their job. This is direct violation of their First Amendment rights and unconstitutional. This is unfortunate, but anything helps. Please help my sibling while they look for another job and stand against the tyranny that is creeping into this country. My sibling and I are being arrested for the protest. We have been threatened, doxxed, harassed, and fired. Please consider donating for legal counsel and court fees. So again, you have a right to free speech. You don't have a right to destroy property. You don't have a right to destroy a memorial. Despite her claims, Kaylee and her sister may be the ones infringing on free speech rights, as they were filmed shredding signs memorializing Kirk and kicking the candles over in footage that went viral online. Blank Charlie Kirk, Carrie, who uses they pronouns, said in the video, before making a hand gesture at the camera saying, "Film all you want." See, in today's culture, especially in that woke culture, she becomes more popular. She's the most aggrieved. She's more upset than you are, so that makes her more popular. She's more offended than you are. She went to the extreme of destroying a memorial for a man that was assassinated. See, like my post now. Give me money in this instance. Carrie added, Charlie Kirk died as he lived, promoting violence. Blank Charlie Kirk's. A few more times before storming off with her sister in tow. Great example for each other, sisters. Also using a cliche line that people are still using on social media, thinking that they're saying something brilliant or that they know they stole it from. This is what I don't get about social media. They know they stole it from somebody, but they still feel good taking the credit of saying something that is at this point cliche. Quote, Charlie Kirk died as he lived, promoting violence. That is what they have been saying. Some people have said it different ways to try to take extra credit for themselves. Benton County Justice of the Peace, Joseph Bollinger, said everyone has a right to be able to express their freedom of expression. But what the issue is when you trample on someone's memorial, the human act of grieving. You're not just trampling on their freedom of expression. You're trampling on the memory of a person. You're trampling on our Benton County values. After they were arrested, Carrie was fired from her work at an Arkansas restaurant, and Kaylee's boyfriend dumped her and told her to move out. Yikes. Kaylee has lived in my home now for over a year, and I have never once cut her down or not allowed her to have the beliefs that she has, says Lacey Christian, the mother of Kaylee's ex. However, I will not allow someone living in my house to be okay or celebrate a murder. I will never allow someone to live in my home who's okay with destroying a memorial for someone else. As of Wednesday afternoon, the sisters have still managed to raise nearly $15,000, which they will say go to legal counsel and court fees. But some of the cash appears to be from trolls who donated the platform's minimum amount so they could tell the sisters how they really feel in the page's comments. Oh, okay. I didn't know you could do that. All right. The sisters were charged with first-degree criminal mischief, and both were freed on bond worth $22,500 together. Andrew, on a positive note, before we go to break, Andrew Colvett said that Turning Point USA is on the cusp of having a TPUSA or Club America chapter in every high school and college campus in America. Wow. Spokesman and Andrew Colvett said in an update Tuesday night. Huge update. After Sunday's memorial for Charlie, TPUSA received a massive surge of inquiries to start new chapters. Post-Sunday, we are now at over 120,000 inquiries. Wow. Even accounting for attrition and duplication, we are on the cusp of having a TPUSA or Club America chapter in every high school and college campus in America. I would be curious, and if someone in the audience knows, because I know we have a lot of people that have kids or grandkids, are there in our area, any of the local schools, are there a Turning Point USA chapter at our high schools and colleges? Just out of curiosity, nothing to be critical one way or the other, just curious. All right, we got to take a short break. A couple other things we'll talk about with that. We've got a lot of New York State issues. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking roof cam brought to you by, look at that view. Thank you to Ball Security for bringing us that roof cam. I like the kind of fogginess off in the background. It almost looks like a painting. So thank you to Ball Security. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. I've been thinking about World War II and those that have died. The ones that died during the war are probably rolling over in their graves. They have no idea, these young people, the people that compare, or the politicians or those in the media that compare everything to Hitler and Nazis, they have no idea what it was like to fight Hitler. It's just ridiculous. Yes, it is. They have no idea. They don't have any idea. That's why I really got outraged at the time when Antifa, who was just going around spreading violence and using fascism in the name of anti-fascism. But you remember there was some prominent people that tweeted out that Antifa was no different than the soldiers storming the beaches of Normandy and these type of things. It was so disrespectful, so despicable. You're exactly right. They have no idea what it was like to fight Hitler, to fight the Nazis, to go through that war, and to just throw that around. Casualty is so frustrating. I couldn't agree more. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning. Well, good morning. Just a thought. Given that Democrats have pushed their DEI ideology, but given that they fight the Republicans no matter what, aren't they being hypocritical and are therefore displaying their true underlying colors? How politically motivated is that? Well, yeah, everything is, there's tolerance. They're the most intolerant in the name of tolerance, I've heard people say. That just like they use fascism to fight anti-fascism. So you raise an interesting point there. Ken writes in, while I fully believe that Biden was the worst president in the history of America, that everything he did during his presidency was at his handler's direction, and that he most likely didn't win the election honestly. He was a president of the United States, and I don't agree with replacing his picture at the Presidential Walk of Fame. If we don't remember our mistakes, we are likely to repeat them. It demeans the Trump presidency and gives ammunition to the legacy media to say that the Trump administration is vengeful. Well, I understand your point on that, Ken. I know, I don't know if it'll permanently be the auto pen or if it was just to get a little attention about that, because that's a new, I guess, Walk of Fame, right? That's the way I understand it, or remodeled at least. The only thing I'll say that I would push back on, I don't worry as much about he's giving them ammunition, the legacy media ammunition to say that Trump is vengeful, because they're going to say that if there was no auto pen photo hanging up on the wall, it would be something else. I understand. I'm not disagreeing with you wholeheartedly. I'm just saying those days of worrying about that are kind of gone for me, because the legacy media is always going to find something to fit their narrative. If they want to say he's vengeful, it'll be because, well, they were saying it because he wants to arrest the person who stopped the escalator at the UN. So they'll find something else. The auto pen, As a matter of fact, I don't think they want to cover. The reason I would even argue that maybe it doesn't give them ammunition, I don't think they necessarily want to cover it, because then they would have to explain the auto pen controversy and explain why Biden really wasn't in charge for the full 4 years. Maybe not any of it, as a matter of fact, of some of the reporting that we've learned. But I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you. I think it's a little attention grabbing from Trump, which we know he likes to do. And I think it gets, he gets the laughs, but I don't really have a strong opinion about it either way, but I do appreciate your opinion, Ken. So yesterday, Megyn Kelly taught a lesson to a left-wing college student at a Turning Point USA event. Remember, she was headlining one of the Turning Point USA events that they're keeping going after Charlie Kirk's assassination. Kelly took the stage at Virginia Tech to host the second TPUSA campus event since the assassination of Kirk. The male student asked Kelly, "Why do you support a president who contributes to the rhetoric that got your friend Charlie Kirk killed? We saw his rally recently. He said, 'I hate my enemies.'" So here's a young person, and you don't blame this young person, because this is what the media is trying to push. This is what so many others have tried to push, that Charlie Kirk, the victim in this, they're victim blaming, that the president contributes to the rhetoric that got Charlie Kirk, because that person was so mad. Remember, words are akin to violence. So that person was so mad at what Trump said or what Charlie Kirk said that he resorted to violence. And what they're doing is justifying that violence, is saying that's okay. Imagine that, because words are akin to violence in their mind. Megyn Kelly said, "This is how we get here. This is a blatant lie. It's a defamatory blaspheme, and it's inappropriate in this setting." When the student tried to equivocate his stance, saying Trump contributed to the atmosphere that led to Kirk's killing, Kelly laid down the law. Well, then you have no point. Then your point is utterly empty. Contributing to the atmosphere? Let's just be clear. Tyler Robinson was motivated by leftist ideologies. We know it from the bullet casings. We know it from the Utah governor. We know it from his own mother. The increasingly visually uncomfortable speaker nearly screeched when he then asked if it was okay to incite violence against liberals, and referenced Trump's comments at Kirk's memorial, in which the president said he does not forgive his enemies. Kelly said the president of the United States has not accepted violence against liberals. It's completely normal for politicians to be thinking about his political fights. And by the way, Trump has every right to loathe his enemies. They try to put him in jail for the rest of his life. They try to bankrupt him. They try to put his family in jail, and they try to kill him. The liberal student then attempted to make an argument about former special prosecutor Jack Smith before opting instead to walk away from the microphone. So that's the second Turning Point USA event since Charlie Kirk's assassination. Finally, two quick things on this, and we got to go because we have our guest from AppleRidge coming up in just a moment. Two Republican congressmen are planning to introduce legislation that would honor Charlie Kirk by featuring his image on thousands of silver dollar coins. Representative August Pfluger and Abe Hamadin explained to Fox that they are planning to introduce a bill later this week that would direct Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to have 400,000 silver $1 coins minted with Kirk's face on one side. The other side of the coin would feature the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." While the final design of the currency would be selected by Bessent and President Trump, the coins would also be inscribed with Kirk's full name. They would also be inscribed with Charles James Kirk, the year 2026, as well as the U.S. full name and motto. Also, this is scary, but in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, a leftist gun club with ties to political violence posted recruiting flyers at Georgetown University with reference to Charlie Kirk's death, saying, quote, "Hey, fascist, catch," on the red flyer from the John Brown Gun Club, posted on Georgetown's campus. The phrase is a nod to the same slogan, which was allegedly written on a shell casing by Tyler Robinson. The advertisement says the only political group that celebrates when Nazis die. Wow. That's still happening on college campuses. Okay. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from AppleRidge about their open to everyone, free healthcare fair coming up on Friday. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Akam. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson's studio. It's hard to believe, but it's already time to talk about the Community Health Fair. Welcome back.
Thank you.
This is yearly, right? It's not
It is.
Yeah. It seems like just yesterday we were talking about last year's.
I know, the year went quick.
Yes.
We're excited to have another one. So we'll be doing that this Friday, from 1 to 3 at AppleRidge Senior Living in Horseheads. So that's at 168 Miller Street in Horseheads, New York.
And I was not surprised because I know last year was large as well, but I was looking at the list of vendors and there's so much there for everyone. But who would you say, if people are just tuning in and they don't know exactly what a community health fair is, what does your health fair look like?
So we partner with RAD, which is the Regional Advocacy for the Aging and Disabled. Ooh, I get that out.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a consortium of professionals that volunteer their time to come together and created a resource for our seniors in the Tri-County area to utilize to find things like help with transportation, housing, if they need referrals for help in the household, for really just about anything that pertains to seniors. So they really focus on trying to help folks that are kind of don't have resources readily available to them.
Right.
And so everyone in this group kind of works to, because they all bring their different expertise to the equation. And so it's more of a channeling of being able to really shortcut the seeking for our seniors, because it's hard for them. Sometimes they don't have technology to research.
Right.
They don't really some of them are disabled. It's difficult for them to communicate or see. Right. So it works out very well. We can help them. Well,
looking at all these resources and vendors that you have, I could understand how it would be overwhelming for some people if they need certain things. Where do you even begin? Now, we were talking off the air about the health resource directory, which is very helpful, flipping through this, and you can get that right at AppleRidge. You can get it at the event too, right?
Yeah, so RAD will bring some to the event. I do have quite a few, so if someone wanted one, they could reach out to me at AppleRidge. I could send one to them, or they could pick one up at our front desk at no cost. We'll send it out to you. And so that's a booklet that RAD put together couple of years ago. They started doing it, and it's a really great resource, especially for folks that may not have the means to, get what they need out of pocket.
Right.
So it's a great resource. So they're generating a new one. It'll be replacing that one. I'm just not sure when. It should be fairly soon.
Okay.
So we'll be looking to get that, and then we just have worked with RAD because obviously AppleRidge is seniors.
Yeah. Right.
And so
Perfect
we
fit.
have 130 seniors that live in our building. I have 18 couples that live there, and a lot of other individuals. Some are siblings, some are, multi-generational, and so it's a great connection just to help everybody. And so the health fair is just something I've decided to do with RAD to kind of bring all the resources together in one place for seniors to come. It's open to the public.
Yeah, not just, and I want to clarify that, it's not just AppleRidge guests, it's also for anyone. And then there is such a need to find this information and all. So I think there's a lot of people that are interested right now saying, how do I sign up? You don't even have to RSVP.
That is correct. You can just come. Friday 1 to 3, no cost. There'll be raffle baskets.
I saw that.
We're going to give out free raffle tickets. Everybody will get the same number of tickets, so they all have the same, ability to win.
I'm a sucker for raffle baskets, so I might see you down there.
They bring some nice ones. We're going to have food, and so of course there's all the assessments that are going to be available: hearing assessments, gait assessments. Fall assessments. There's going to be some presentations on different topics. We have some new companies coming. We have a brand new mobile wound care company coming.
Okay.
So that's a game changer for folks that have wounds that need to be tended to without having to go to a hospital or a clinic or someplace. When they don't have transportation, this mobile company can come to them. That's just an example, but we have 35 vendors, and so I would strongly encourage people come to gather the information, have some fun, have some food. We're going to have a prize wheel, so it's a good time.
So it sounds like you're going to be busy from 1 to 3. You'll be there the whole time. And I do want to mention, because this is fun for me, the Elmira College Speech and Audiology is going to be there with free hearing screenings, because we had them on as a guest just 2 weeks ago, and it came up that they were going to be visiting, and because I met the, I guess professor would be the name, Whitman, with them, and they've got a really neat program going on there.
Yeah, I think it's good to get this kind of information out, and that's really what we're trying to do is team up and just make it available to folks readily, and just come and have a good time.
And they don't really need to bring anything. I mean, you're just going to be basically collecting the pamphlets or talking to people.
Provide them with a bag and to put everything in, and they're able to go around, talk to all the different vendors, gather information, have something to eat. Spin the prize wheel, win a prize, and put some tickets in and hopefully take a raffle basket home. So it's kind of just a combination of information and fun.
And what were the reactions last year after the event? I mean, people must be very happy
quite
with
a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not, we started out maybe with just like 20 vendors.
Oh, wow.
We're capped at 35. I have some that I'm going to put as priority next year because I couldn't get them in this year.
Oh, my goodness.
To be fair. And
that's a good problem to have, I suppose, right?
It is. Yeah. So, more and more people are hearing about it. Thank you to you guys for helping us get the word out. And, hopefully we just have another big turnout,
Oh, I'm sure. I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, not only have you made it a fun event, but an informative event, which that's, sometimes you don't want to go and say, 3 hours of looking through this stuff, but you need it. You have it all in one place, and you might win a raffle, and you might have some great food. So I think what you're doing is an amazing job and amazing work. How long do you plan this? How long does this take? With that many vendors?
We start sometime, usually a couple months ahead. We put it out to all the RAD members, and then any businesses that we've kind of met over the course of the year that might be new, like the wound care. I met them at a RAD event. Okay. And so I said, hey, you guys should really come. And so, those are the things. It just kind of takes a few months. You build the momentum, you do the planning, and then, setup will start tomorrow. Okay. We'll have pretty much everything set up by the end of the day tomorrow so that Friday we are just kind of ready to greet everybody and have a good time.
That's wonderful. It's a community health fair. Again, important note, community. It's for everybody. It's going to be at AppleRidge Senior Living. That's Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Thanks so much for being on the program. Is there any way that people, if they have any questions or need to find out more, how can they get that information?
Just call AppleRidge. The front desk has the information. You can ask to speak to me if you'd like to. You're going to reach us at 607-767-6190.
Okay, and if anybody has any questions or if they missed that, they can contact the number on the bottom of the screen. I'll make sure to pass along that information. Well, thanks for being on the show. Can we do it again next year?
We certainly can.
All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We want to thank Libby for being on the program this morning. She's the Director of Marketing and Sales at AppleRidge Senior Living. Don't miss out on the Community Health Fair Friday from 1 to 3. So we appreciate her being on the program. Let's read some viewer comments, shall we? First, I like this one. My father was a World War II vet, and I was brought up, first comes God, second comes country, third comes family. And without the first two, you can't have the third. Thank you very much. What a powerful message this morning. I do appreciate that. Comment from a different viewer. I found the picture of the auto pen not only appropriate and applicable, but also humorous. Thank you. Jack writes in, likes the auto pen portrait. Considering all that 45 and 47 went through, it's very disproportionate in comparison. It makes an indisputable statement and asks questions about who was in charge. A brilliant move on all things considered. However, I'm sure that picture will be replaced and possibly the ones on either side will end up with a blackened eye, beard, and mustache if the Democrats return. Thank you very much. And finally, I think I heard they are finally going after James Comey. Yes, we mentioned that in the 6 o'clock hour at the top of the program. Since the statute of limitation comes into play, it's actually 9/30, September 30th. So they have until the 30th, next week, before the statute of limitations runs up on it. So that's why they're putting kind of a mad dash on it as quickly as they possibly can. All right. Jimmy Kimmel, I just want to mention this real quick. I don't want to talk too much about Kimmel, but there was a piece by Kristen Flemings that said Jimmy Kimmel's return was a self-serving reminder of who Hollywood really cares about, and that's themselves. And you can find this piece at the New York Post this morning. But what she says is Kimmel willfully misunderstood what landed him in hot water in the first place. It wasn't jokes about Trump. It wasn't jokes at all. It was him essentially saying that Kirk's murderer was MAGA when it was clear that that was not the case. In essence, he told a lie, or as the left would say, disinformation. Audiences found it distasteful. Local stations and later ABC and Disney decided to keep him off air because reportedly he had plans to double down on it. Not only not apologize, and he never apologized to the Kirk family. He became, as so many people have said, he tried to make himself the martyr. He tried to make himself the victim in this with his crocodile tears, and we talked about it yesterday. That's why I don't want to go too much into it. If you look at the polls, nearly, 70% do not watch his program or only watch it about once a month, so it's not worth spending too much time on. But Kristen, we got a fire truck going by. Kristen Fleming says, where were these people when Twitter locked the New York Post out of their account over their exclusive reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop, and a group of intelligence officers wrongly declared it Russian disinformation? They were cheering because it helped Biden win. They were quiet all along because it didn't affect them, their paychecks, or their influence. And Dan McLaughlin from the National Review took it a step farther, calling Jimmy Kimmel an unrepentant liar in his op-ed, which again you can find at the National Review. He basically wraps up and he gives a lot of specifics, but he says, now I do not argue that the shooter represents the left, because unless you're in an explicitly violent movement, the perpetrators of political violence are a tiny and unrepresentative minority. But note that nowhere does Kimmel acknowledge that the shooter was not a MAGA right-winger. He never brought that up. Nowhere does he say, or so maybe correct the record, if you would. Nowhere does he say the least bit to correct the lie he told his audience previously. Instead, having been caught in the lie and having played the "I'm sorry if you misunderstood or were offended" card, he pivots to the "it doesn't matter" theme, a theme we know he doesn't believe, given that what he was doing just a week ago, and to painting the killer as deeply disturbed and a sick person, even though this was not, unlike many other such atrocities, the act of a delusional individual suffering a mental breakdown. This was evil. And while evil is always in some sense a break with rationality, it is simply not the case that the assassin was incapable of forming political opinions and acting on them. But sincerely recanting and apologizing for what he actually said was beyond Kimmel. And now he knows that he got away with it, which makes it that much likelier that he'll do it again. All right. Oh, and there is a piece at the Washington Examiner talking about this counterculture revolution that's happening kind of in the wake, but even in the beginning, before Charlie Kirk's assassination, talking about something big happening to America's young people. It's been building for the past 2 years. It centers on faith, purpose, and a renewal towards more traditional American values. This new American youth counterculture movement looks very different from the ones that burst onto the scenes in the 60s. And of course, giving a lot of history here on the 60s and that type of counterculture revolution, but giving examples of what today's counterculture revolution, a long time coming here, about various ministries, various rallies that show that young people are going to church more, are believing in faith more. Sunday's memorial service for Charlie Kirk was an example of a large revival. These young people have behaved boldly since the horrid murder, but not in the way our current cultural curators find acceptable. As Erica Kirk said on Sunday, quote, "These past 10 days after Charlie's assassination, we didn't see violence. We didn't see rioting. We didn't see revolution. Instead, we saw what my husband always prayed he would see in this country. We saw revival." Okay. I know I've been saying all morning we're going to talk about New York State issues, so let's get to them. Oh, there's another at Fox News. David Marcus writes, Democrats are freaking out over short-lived Kimmel cancellation, but ignore the shocking Google revelation that at the House Judiciary Committee that not only exposed the massive efforts by the Joe Biden administration to make them censor conservative voices at Google and YouTube, but also promised to offer those creators reinstatement on their platform because they knew that they had done wrong. That has been ignored by the mainstream media. Jake Tapper, Democrats like him, should remove the gigantic censorious plank in their own eyes before criticizing the splinter that is Jimmy Kimmel's slap-on-the-wrist punishment from ABC. The left was all but gleeful when the cancellations were firing on all cylinders during COVID. They didn't care who was hurt by it then. They didn't care about the First Amendment or democratic principles. They just cheered it on. So spare us, Jake Tapper. You had a chance to stand against government censorship when it really mattered during COVID, and you blew it. Maybe just sit this one out. Okay. Hey, Congressman Nick Langworthy has announced $500,000 in ARC investments for Steuben, Chemung, and Schuyler counties. This is we've talked about ARC in the past. more than $500,000 in federal investments for substance abuse recovery and workforce training. He said, I'm proud to announce, this is Congressman Langworthy, I'm proud to announce $500,000 in federal funding is on its way to strengthen our local workforce and offer critical skills training for those battling substance abuse and addiction. There is dignity in work, and the promise of the American dream is built, each of us seizing the opportunity in front of us. This federal investment will serve our neighbors across Steuben, Chemung, and Schuyler to build a bridge for people pursuing recovery to rejoin the workforce. From battling the drug epidemic with key legislation like the HALT Fentanyl Act to supporting important workforce training and recovery programs like this, I will continue to fight for a stronger, safer, and healthier Southern tier. So thank you to the Congressman. And I had to mention this. I know I mentioned it earlier. I believe I did. Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard is issuing an urgent warning to the public following a recent surge in scam attempts targeting individuals across all demographics, not just the elderly in this scenario. These scams are becoming increasingly sophisticated, with perpetrators often impersonating law enforcement officers from the sheriff's office and other government agencies. The fraudulent calls or messages may include claims of missed court dates or warrants requiring immediate payment, demands for gift cards or wire transfers as payment for fines, threats related to sex offender registry compliance, and warnings that personal information will be released if demands are not met. In some cases, scammers may even spoof phone numbers to make their calls appear legitimate. Sheriff Jim Allard, friend of Frankly Speaking, said these criminals are preying on fear and confusion. It's important for the public to understand that law enforcement will never contact you by phone to demand payment of any kind. Tips to protect yourself. Do not provide personal or financial information over the phone. Do not purchase or send gift cards as a form of payment. Hang up and contact the agency directly using a verified phone number and report suspicious calls to local law enforcement or the Internet Crime Complaint Center. So thank you to the sheriff. Sticking with local and New York State issues, New York's Governor Kathy Hochul, I don't know if you saw the video. It's making its rounds. Elise Stefanik's, not her people specifically, but people that support her have been sharing it. She was booed while attending the Ryder Cup opening ceremonies yesterday at Bethpage Black on Long Island. As Carson Daly, who was the broadcaster, the MC, revealed the Democratic governor was in attendance, loud boos were heard on the broadcast. The telecast showed some people around Hochul clapping as she waved an American flag. One person was heard shouting, "Get out of here, Kathy." Representative Elise Stefanik mocked Hochul on social media, calling the boos brutal. Bad day for the worst governor in America, said Stefanik. Now that is important to note because a lot of people are hoping that Stefanik declares that she'll be running for governor soon. There's some interesting moves in that direction. She's been making some interesting statements. We reported here yesterday, where I haven't heard anyone else reporting on it, but that she did, this meaning Elise Stefanik, put her Washington, D.C. home up for sale. So some interesting signs that she may be headed in the right direction. Now, keep in mind, Hochul's attendance comes 2 days before President Trump will be attending for the start of the Ryder Cup between Team United States and Team Europe. Scotty Scheffler said, to have the president here, it's been a tough few weeks for our country with some of the stuff that's been going on. And to have our president here and for us to represent the United States of America, albeit being in a golf tournament, is extremely important for us. And we're excited to be on home soil with the home crowd, and we're ready to get this tournament started. Scheffler also revealed he had spoken with Trump after some of his big victories on the course, praising him as someone who loves the game of golf and treats people with the utmost respect. So Kathy Hochul, quote, viciously booed at the Ryder Cup opening yesterday. People yelling, "You're the worst." A lot of comments made again by Stefanik and people that support Stefanik on this. People yelling, "Get out of here, Kathy." Anyway, we got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to a viewer comment, then we're going to wrap up our discussion on New York, but also a couple other things. Rick writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Rick. Trying to keep it short. So much good material out there. It's like an ocean full of Trump chaos. Doesn't Trump have anything better to do than start a war with Kimmel, SNL, The View, and every other venue worthy to watch or listen to that picks on him? I think it's great. Trump and his 1 millimeter thick skin are horrified by it. You know, if he worried about what he should, like wars, budget, lowering costs, etc., it wouldn't leave much material for people to poke fun at. I was always told to silence my critics with results. Best advice I was ever given. Trump should take some of that advice. Maybe he should launch an investigation into an escalator. Oh man, he already is. Thank you, Rick. Zohran Mamdani's dominant lead in the latest New York City mayoral poll shows even more bad news for his rivals. He holds a dominant 20-point lead in the race. If you look at a recent poll, when it comes to the highest favorabilities, keep this in mind as we talk about the gubernatorial race and what Elise Stefanik, if she decides to run, will have to overcome. This is in New York City. The highest favorability ratings, Bernie Sanders. This is just an overall politician with 61% favorability rating. Kathy Hochul, 53% favorability ratings, just edging out Zohran Mamdani with 50% favorability ratings. Capitalism in New York City only receives a 48% favorable rating. Andrew Cuomo, 50% unfavorable. Socialism, 44% unfavorable. Eric Adams, 66% unfavorable. Well, how can socialism be 44% unfavorable when they support Zohran Mamdani? Anyway, Bernie Sanders. Okay. Also, a total of 475 local government employees in New York outside of New York City were paid more than $300,000 during the 2024-2025 fiscal year. 363 of them were employed by local governments in the Long Island counties of Suffolk and Nassau. Just something to keep in mind as we talk about the spending in New York State. Also, we learned that New York prison staffing and morale are at low 6 months after the strike. Staffing shortages at New York prisons have worsened. Morale amongst guards remains low. And the lives of incarcerated people are still disrupted 6 months after Wildcat prison strike has ended. Okay, Trump leaders are begging Trump for a meeting as the GOP stands firm in its shutdown fight. We know we're not going to get everything we want, said the Democrats. Just 1 minute. Okay, I got our group coming in from San Giovanni Valderno. They'll be with us here in tomorrow's program, but they're going to be coming in the studio here in just a moment. All right, we'll take a short break and we'll read your comments when we come back. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. Mark says, hats off to the people that booed Hochul. She deserves it. Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, Democrat leaders attempted to ramp up pressure on Trump to meet with them after he gave them the cold shoulder on Tuesday. He canceled that meeting with Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. Schumer going on Morning Joe yesterday and saying it's so easy to just sit down and talk to us. And we know we're not going to get everything, but he's not even doing that. And the American people are going to say, why won't he do that? There's no good reason. Democrats have demanded an array of health care related concessions to give the green light to a stopgap measure that will keep the government's lights on through November the 21st. But Trump and Republicans have insisted Congress stick with a clean, continuing resolution that has no strings attached. Both Senate Majority Leader John Thune and House Speaker Mike Johnson have said the Congress will consider one of the Dems' key demands, an extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies after the shutdown fight. Mike Lawler, who was seen as a potential candidate for governor here in New York, but ultimately stepped aside, he has a piece of the New York Post today that said, hypocrite Democrats are driving us off the government shutdown cliff. He said, and it's quite a lengthy piece, you can find it at the New York Post, but he said, so next time you hear a Democrat lecture you about extremists and hostage taking, remember this: when it suited them, they said exactly the same thing about shutdowns. And when it suited them, they abandoned those principles. That's the very definition of hypocrisy, and the American people deserve better. Senate Democrats should vote with Republicans to pass a clean, continuing resolution and keep the government open so that we can finish our bipartisan appropriation negotiation before the end of the year and do the job we were sent here to do. And finally, we talked about Chuck Schumer demanding a meeting with Trump. He is losing support among a key constituency, Chuck Schumer. We know his poll ratings are at a 20-year low, but he's also losing support amongst the Democrats who want to join his caucus. In Maine, 4 of the Democrats running to unseat the GOP's most vulnerable senator have already pledged not to support Schumer as leader. 3 other candidates refuse to commit. In Illinois, the 3 leading Democrats vying to succeed Schumer's retiring number 2 says we're keeping their options open. Yeah, I guess he has become, as Politico put it, toxic. Nathan Sage said it's about darn time. He seems like he's starting to fight for us. It's almost too late at this point. Schumer is running into a wall of resistance from a crop of largely insurgent Senate candidates in key races, from safe seats to top targets to reach states, as he hustles to recruit a slate of strong contenders to compete across an unfavorable map. So Chuck Schumer being deemed toxic. All right, we're going to end the program on an exciting note. Congratulations to Pro Action of Steuben and Yates. They marked a significant milestone, 60 years of dedicated service to the communities of Steuben and Yates County. And attending the big celebration, our friends, Senator Tom O'Mara and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. There's a picture of the crew receiving their proclamations and celebrating 60 years. Established in 1965 as the official community action agency by federal and state designation, Pro Action has consistently addressed the underlying challenges of poverty, nurturing hope, and inspiring new horizons for individuals and families. So there's a proclamation. There's Tom O'Mara and Phil Palmisano. And there's another nice picture. So I thought I'd pass that along to you and end the program on a positive note. So happy 60 years to Pro Action of Steuben and Yates County. All right, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our friend from AppleRidge for telling us about tomorrow's health fair. Don't forget, tomorrow we're going to talk to a group of students from San Giovanni Valderno, Italy. Our second group is in tomorrow's show. And we're going to be talking with Corning mayoral candidate Pam Walker. She'll be joining us as well. So make sure you tune in tomorrow morning and every morning, starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early.